Hello, Shell.
Okay.
Thanks for coming. So tell me, where are you from?
We on now?
Yeah.
Okay. I was born in Georgia and raised in Tennessee, and then I lived in Dalton, Georgia, right before I changed my life again. I look at that as my old life, so it's kind of like it literally feels like a lifetime ago. Because from Georgia, I went down to Florida. I was going on a trip to see my mom. I'd been married like 24 years.
Okay.
My ex-husband unfortunately has alcohol, and he's got a very troubled soul, and he lost his leg at 19 years old, had a leg amputation, and he never was the same after that. And he would turn to alcohol and just go on these dark. So anyway, long story short, I went to Florida to see my mom, and he decided he didn't want to be married anymore. So he literally dumped me while I was in Florida. And I went down there in this little ratty truck and had no way to get back to Tennessee or Georgia to get my stuff. And I couldn't get a hold of him for like a few days, and then finally when I got a hold of him, he's like, yeah, I just don't want to be married anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, oh, you could have told me that, I would have still been your friend, but to do it to me this way, I'm like, okay, that's it, I'm done. And we'd had a really rocky relationship. When he was sober, it was great, but then when he wasn't sober, he would end up just doing really stupid stuff, and to the point I would get ready, I'm gonna leave, and then he'd go to rehab, and then we'd start the cycle all over again. So I ended up getting my own place in Florida, got a job. I ended up in a wreck in that little truck. This girl was texting and hit me head on. So I lost my little truck, got another car, and had just got my footing under me again. And here he called me, hey baby. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I'm 3 states away. I'm done. And so I filed for divorce, and it took me 3 years to get the divorce from there. But when I was in Florida, in Georgia, going back to Georgia, we ended up living in this house that had black mold, and I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and I couldn't understand why. I didn't know about black mold then. Like my legs would just be like black, like somebody had beat me. They even asked me at the doctor's office, "Somebody beating you?" And I'm like, "No, seriously, no." And it caused this weird anemia, and I started having all these other symptoms. My hair was falling out, just crazy stuff. And so in Florida, I felt a little better, and then I moved, and it was like the mold would come through the vents of the car. I would get so sick. And I ended up in the hospital. I was in there 9 days, and I can remember like my mom was mad at me. I was already talking about going to Colorado then, because Florida had developed a medical program, but it was so expensive nobody could afford it. And then their medicine, it was crap. It wasn't even. Anyway, it was very commercialized. That's all I'm going to say about it. And I remember being in the hospital, and my mom was showing herself, and I'm like, I'm dying, and my family doesn't care. And I put it on Facebook. I said, that's it. I've had it. I'm going to go to Colorado. And I didn't have the money to go. And so somebody was like, well, start a GoFundMe. And I'm like, I don't want to do a GoFundMe. And somebody said, well, put your PayPal up. So I put my PayPal up, and I got enough money to get a ticket and to mail a box of stuff to Colorado. And I met this person on Facebook that was going to teach me how to make the cannabis oil. And he's like, you can come stay here, no strings attached. I'll teach you how to make it and give you a place to land on your feet, all that stuff. So that's what I did. And I got out of the hospital on Thursday, and Saturday I landed in Colorado. But I got just enough to get there, and I shut the PayPal down. And yeah, I totally left my life. My son was going to the Job Corps, and I told him, I said, sell everything you can, get rid of the rest, and you go to the Job Corps, I've got to go or I'm going to die. And my mom literally told him, leave her at the hospital, don't take her to the airport. And she disowned me for a year when I left, yeah. So, but when he saw me at the hospital, he was like, Mom, you got to go or you are going to die. So he took me, and he said it was the hardest thing he ever did, put me on the airplane, but he did it. And anyway, that started this crazy, crazy wild trip for me. And I just, it's like I just went where the wind blew me, and I ended up going from, I lived in Denver with 2 ladies. We got us a house on Dayton Boulevard, and we lived there in Denver total for about 8 months. And then we went to, what was the name? It was in Nevada, McDermott, Nevada, to a 70,000 plant hemp grow. I had a friend, Mark Hubbard. He's a big guy in the cannabis industry. He's like a scientist guy in the lab and stuff. And we were friends, and he's like, hey, Shell, come down here. I need your energy. That's how he said it. And I was like, well, I can't work full time, Mark. And he's like, I don't care, we'll do what you could do. I just want, And I was like, well, can I bring my friends? He's like, bring it, whoever, I need everybody I can get. So I told her, I said, I don't know what it is, but I just have a feeling we're not coming back. And it didn't make any sense. We had this really nice house. We had everything in there. And I told her, I said, just take what you don't want to leave, because I've just got a feeling. And so we took off to Nevada, and she had already decided she wanted to go to California to this camping trip her and her husband used to go to, and he had passed away. So she was getting ready to take off to California, and she was going to leave me in Nevada. I had let my son come and get my car, and I'm like, you can't leave me here. I knew she wouldn't come back and get me. So I was going to put it on Facebook. I'm coming to California. Who's in California? And this lady reaches out and she says, Shell, you've got to meet this guy, Larry. He's doing what you want to do. You've got to meet him. And it turned out he had lost his wife to 4 different types of cancer. I know one of them was leukemia. I don't remember what the other 3 were. And she had made him make her a dying promise that he would help as many people as he could learn about the cannabis oil and what it could do and all that stuff. Because while she was in the hospital dying, he was in the hospital studying terpenes and what each thing would do. And when all this happened with her, they didn't tell him that she didn't have to have chemo. They made it like it was the only option for her. So she ended up not dying from cancer. She died from from the chemo-induced pneumonia. And the cannabis oil was literally reversing all of the cancers. They were documenting all that, but then she died with a pneumonia. So he was determined that's what he wanted to do. And then I come, I'm really cannabis minded, I'm community minded, I wanted to build the vegan vegetarian community, and he's like, I'm down, let's do it. So we started trying to help people and make it vegan vegetarian. I tell people when they come, it's going to be a vegan vegetarian, whole food, plant-based. We're going to raise our own food, grow our own medicine. We're going to teach people, oh yeah, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. And then they would get there and fight me on everything. Why can't we have a hamburger? I'm like, because it's a plant-based farm. Can we have a hamburger if we go to town? I'm like, that's not why you're here. So I ended up just getting really stressed trying to deal with everybody and take care of everybody. And then the fires happened, and I got sick, really bad sick again. I ended up in the hospital again. Well, this time it turned out they finally went in and did laparoscopic surgery to find all this. But I had scar tissue from where I had my gallbladder removed that had wrapped around my appendix and was literally squeezing it off and had moved my intestines over. It had made me have gastroparesis. And they found the gastroparesis in the hospital. They were still trying to send me home before they hadn't done the laparoscopic yet. They just kept trying to send me home, and he fought for me. He's like, no, you're not doing this. And he finally demanded a surgeon and demanded the laparoscopic surgery, and they went in there, and that's when they found it, because it doesn't show up on any scans. So I had suffered with that for like 10 years, and I had went to doctors. It would make me so sick, and it was all in my head. And I had already been through all this with fibromyalgia. It took me like 4 years to get diagnosed when I had all that hit me. And so I've got PTSD when it comes to doctors anyway. But when I was in the hospital once in Tennessee. I had this really bad dizziness that they could not figure out. And I ended up making them let me out of the hospital finally. I spent I don't know how many days in the hospital. And I researched iodine, and the iodine regulates your thyroid regulates your equilibrium, everything else. And so I went on 12.5 milligrams of iodine, and within a week, my dizziness, it was gone completely. Yeah, so that was the first time I was like, these doctors don't know anything. And I started doing my own research, and that's how I ended up going whole food plant-based. I watched Forks Over Knives, and that just changed my life. I started like, whoa, I didn't know any of that. I didn't know how food affected my body. I was raised on the Southern diet, cornbread, beans, My granddad owned a farm. He would have his own meat butchered and all that stuff. And so they hunted deer and, I've been around that my whole life. So I never felt right about eating animals, though. I never cared about that. I was always more the beans and cornbread and all that stuff. But when I would cook meat, I would cook it into my food. I never just was one to eat steak. And I would do it because my family did, but it's not something I just had to have. So the more I learned, first it was about my health, and then I started learning about factory farming. And I watched Earthlings, the documentary. I literally had to watch it like this and was crying. And But I made myself because I knew if I watched it, I'd never touch another animal, and I haven't since. So my son is plant-based now. He's vegetarian. He can't quite go all the way vegan. And he's a great big guy. He's got, now that I didn't know all these things when he was growing up, but his hormones are all messed up and his thyroid and all that. So he's trying to go the medical route, even though he saw what I've went through, and he won't do the natural stuff like I do. I get in and dig and research, and I try it. I do trial and error on my body, all that stuff. He won't do all that yet. And I don't know if it's because of his age. I just don't know. I mean, he's seen me go through everything I've went through, but he is at least vegetarian, and he tries to stay whole food. So that's one win.
Yeah.
And my mom, I got her to go when I was down there in Florida. She has congestive heart failure, kidney failure, Sjogren's disease, fibromyalgia. But I went down and spent a few weeks with her and then got her to go raw vegan. I was doing raw vegan then.
Okay.
That's how I got rid of the gastroparesis. I went raw vegan for 8 months. But I got her doing raw vegan, and she went from stage 4 kidney failure to stage 2 within a couple of months. And then her husband influenced her though, and she ended up going paleo. And now she's in stage 4 kidney failure again, and her heart's only working at 20%. But she won't listen to us this time. My son's even like, Meemaw, please. He's like, I'm this big, huge guy. His doctor can't believe it. He's like, your cholesterol's better than mine. He's a little skinny doctor, and he's like, your cholesterol's better than mine. Your heart, everything's great. He's like, it's got to be your thyroid and all that. So they're working on all that, but his doctor can't believe it. And he said, Meemaw, as big as I am, he's like, I should have heart problems. I should have I should have diabetes. He's like, but I don't have any of that. But it's because I eat plant-based. But she just won't. She's 70 years old and set in her ways. So I'm just like, I have to accept it, But my biggest thing is it's hard to sit here and tell your whole story, in just a little bit, but I've overcome just so much. When my ex-husband, he had the leg amputation, he also had Crohn's disease, and he worked the first 2 years of our marriage. He worked at this Plastic Industries was the name of it, factory. He did factory work, and then he tried working at a restaurant, and he ended up, when it wasn't the leg amputation that got him disability, he ended up with the Crohn's disease, and that's when they put him on disability. So I had to work, and I went into management, and then I fell at work, and I can remember being 18, 19 years old, because I started in management then, and looking up at monitors and my neck and shoulders just killing me, and I thought that was normal. I thought everybody went through that. And then when I fell at work, and when I did, it was like the flu times 1,000, all over body aches. I was eating awful then. I was working in fast food, but all over body aches, and just I'd fell and hurt my knee and my back, and I kept telling the doctors, it's not just my knee and my back. I'm literally hurting all over. Even my hair would hurt. And they were like, it's workman's comp. Our only job is to deal with your leg and your back. And so it took me 3 or 4 more years to get the fibromyalgia diagnosis. And I just went through hell. I tried to listen to the doctors. I had one doctor when I first started. He said, you need to change your diet and you need to exercise. But he didn't tell me how to change my diet, and he didn't tell me what exercise. And I was hurting at that point so bad, I was like, have you lost your mind? Exercise? No. So he was the only one, though, that really knew what he was talking about, because I started listening to them, and then I ended up on 17 medications. I got up to 300 pounds. I had fell and fractured my feet. I was either on a wheelchair or on a cane. I had 2 bad knees, and I ended up letting them operate on one, and that's the one that still bothers me. And they both had the same thing wrong with them, and this one never bothers me. It's always this one. But so I was either in a wheelchair or on a cane, and I was in such, I've got pictures I'll send you later, but I was just so, I would wear gowns all the time. I couldn't stand clothes to touch me. I hurt so bad. And I ended up hooked on pain medicines, and just went down a really dark road. And then my ex, at that time, he wrecked a truck with a 12-year-old kid he was driving my truck. It was a King Cab truck, and my 18-year-old son, and almost hit a guy on a bicycle, and he hit a metal telephone pole doing about 65 miles an hour. And he ended up going to jail over that for 5 months. Finally, I went straight to the cop, and I'm like, he needs to go to jail. He's going to end up killing somebody. He almost killed my son, and he almost hit a guy on a bicycle, and that guy testified against him. And the cop said, well, if he has one thing in his system, he's going. And I knew that he was smoking cannabis, so he was gone. So that was the first time that I'm like, it's over, I'm done. But unfortunately, I gave him another chance after that. And finally, it took him doing what he did in Florida for it to finally just be over. And so I rebuilt myself from that, and I stayed single for 3 years until I got the divorce, and I'd met Larry. And I wanted an intentional relationship. I want to help people. That's all I want to do. And I know what I've had to fight. Being in the South, cannabis was everywhere, but it was taboo. And you're a dope head, or you're a stoner, or you're a hippie, or whatever. You can say I am a hippie, but it was truly and 100% my medicine. And if I hadn't have had it, there are times that I know I would not be here. When I was at my worst with the gastroparesis and I couldn't eat anything, and it's helped me so much with pain, and I will not touch any kind of pharmaceuticals now at all. I don't even take Tylenol because I don't want the damage to my body that it did, you know. And I want to educate as many people as I can that you can take your power back. And I'm struggling again because I went through a depression after leaving this last relationship and walking away from the farm and realizing I got so close to building that community, you know, and it just kept, but I learned so much of who I can't help just anybody. I have to help people that are already helping themselves and that truly want it. And I can't give it to anybody, but I want to influence as many people as I can. And I want to show them I hurt every single day. I have to literally, most of the time, make myself get up and go. But I know the alternative is to sit there and die. And there's more to life than taking and filling up a fancy box. I tell Ray, you work so hard to fill up that fancy box with all this stuff, and you drive a fancy box, and then you end up in a box, and you don't get to take any of it with you, you know, and it's either sold or give away or whatever, you know, and that becomes your whole life. And then you wake up one day and it's like, oh my God, I've missed all those moments. So that's how I ended up in Oregon. I came last summer. I was going to stay 4 weeks from Arizona, and I got here and I'm like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And I only saw like a little fraction of it. So I'm like, okay. Everybody told me about the winter. I'm like, okay, if I can make it through the winter, I know I can do the summer. So I did make it through the winter, but it's going to be my only winter. I can't do it again. So this winter, I'm going to start probably in September, and I'm going to work my way. I'm going back to California. I've got some friends that want me to camp with them a little while. So I'm going to go see them, and then I've been wanting to go to Mount Shasta I haven't been yet at all. So I want to go to Mount Shasta, and then I'm going to go back through Nevada. There's a place with hot springs. It's just amazing. You can camp out there as long as you want to. It's totally free. And I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go back through Vegas. I've got all the drum circle friends that I used to connect with there. And then I'm going to Golden Valley, and then I'm going to Sedona, and then to Phoenix. And I've got a friend in Phoenix that's going to let me stay with her for the winter. So got a big road trip planned there again, but all along the way I meet people and I tell my story and try to influence as much as I can. But I do this on a very minimal budget, and I do this with a lot stacked against me health-wise, but I just keep going and keep doing and keep experiencing, because the alternative is to sit and literally focus on pain and focus on sickness, or get out and live, you know?
Yeah.
So I choose to live.
So how long did you struggle with painkillers?
I'm not really good with dates, but I would say at least 5 to 6 years. So I went to pain management, but I was never prescribed fentanyl, but my ex-husband got me hooked on fentanyl. So he was on, they put him on these fentanyl suckers for the Crohn's disease, and he had 600 microgram suckers, one in each side of his mouth, 3 to 4 times a day, plus fentanyl patches, plus all these other things that like Seroquel and Marinol and all this stuff. So I can remember I was hurting so bad, and they had given me, I think the strongest thing they ever prescribed me was like Opanas and Oxycontin, but that wasn't working. And he came up and gave me just a little piece of that sucker, and it tasted just like a little piece of candy, but all my pain went away. It was just like, whoa. And I didn't realize what it was, or what the hold was going to be on me. So he kept giving me a little piece here and a little piece there. And I was working in management at Big Lots at the time, and I remember feeling like I had the worst flu, and I was running to the bathroom, and I'm like, oh my God. So I called him and I said, I think I'm gonna have to come home. I think I've got the flu. And he said, I'll be right there. And he brought me a little piece of that sucker, and immediately went away, and it didn't register I was going through withdrawals, and I didn't even know it. And then he was on TennCare at the time, and they had literally made him sign an agreement that if he ever stopped the pain management, he would have to go to rehab because it could kill him. Well, they got rid of his insurance. Like, boom, he had no insurance, so there was no rehab. And he laid in the bed and had seizures coming off all that stuff. And I went through the worst withdrawals. It was so bad. And for a while, we both stayed off of it because he didn't have his insurance back. And I don't even. Everything is a blur through those years, and I know that we were clean for a little while, but it's like a blur. I don't remember much about it. And then he ended up getting back in pain management again, and then he taught me back into pain management, and then the cycle started all over again. And then what ended it was when he wrecked the truck, and it was like I just snapped. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm killing myself. And so I was like, I'm done with him, and I started just coming off everything. And the hardest thing I came off of, though, was Seroquel, because it helped me sleep at night. And when I came off it, I couldn't sleep. And I went literally 2 weeks without being able to sleep at all. So yeah, it was hell coming off of it. And Cymbalta was another one that was really hard to come off of that you wouldn't think. But I'd been on it for so long, and so yeah, but I did it all, and I did it without rehab. And because once I was done, and I never touched it again. So.
And then how long after that did you discover cannabis was a helpful medicine?
This is the funny thing. I didn't smoke cannabis till I was 26 years old. And his friend begged me. He's like, "Shell, you got to try this. It will help your pain." And I was from the Just Say No era. I was terrified of my dad. And I remember my ex-husband's sister trying her best to get me to smoke with her, and I wouldn't do it. I'm like, no, 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 no. So James kept on and on and on and on, and I finally one day I smoked a little bit of it, and it made me so silly, but it did help my pain. And I'm like, wow, this isn't at all what I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I thought, but devil's lettuce, I guess. I don't know. But so I dabbled in it, but it was after he and I split up, and I just started smoking it more and relying on everything because I was coming off the pain medicine and all that stuff too. It helped tremendously come through all that. And I had friends. It was funny though. It was like younger kids in the neighborhood and stuff were bringing me cannabis because it's the South. But anyway, I didn't want to live that way anymore. Even in Florida with the medical program, like I said, it was so expensive. To get your medical card, they just made it so unobtainable for someone struggling. I was trying to take care of me, my son, pay bills, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, And I just couldn't afford it. So like, I'm going to Colorado. And then Colorado, it was like landing in a different world, literally. Like, even just landing at the airport, it was like such a different experience for me. I'd never flown before I flew to Denver. And then I'd been through Atlanta, but never like just going off to Denver like that on my own, And so, yeah, it was a whole different experience, but.
And it had been legalized in Colorado during.
Yeah, it was totally. And then to go into a dispensary and to be able to tell, I've got this wrong with me. I've got this wrong with me. What would you? Before that, I didn't know the difference between indica and sativa. And sativas, they make my pain worse. They make me I can't stand sativas. I feel like a nervous wreck, and it makes my spine feel like it's coming out of my back. And in the South, when that would hit me, I would get, that strength. I didn't know that's what that was. I just thought, oh God, I can't do this. And I would just not do it. And then I would get an indica strain, which is in the couch, and it would make me feel normal. It makes me feel, it makes my pain go away. And I have a very high functioning brain. I'm all the time. It never shuts down. So it kind of like brings me down to a calmer, normal level. But, it's such a miracle plant, and you don't even have to smoke it. When I started getting I had an angel, that's what they called it, sent me some oil, and I remember taking just this little small amount, and I have had chronic insomnia since I was 12 years old, and after the Seroquel, I didn't sleep. But I remember taking that little bit of oil, and I slept for like 10 hours. Wow. And it was like this solid, deep, just awesome sleep, So, yeah, it helps with everything. The pain, there's so many. I've had people with seizures, people with cancer, people with I had a skin thing here. It was like it had actually ruptured. I never did go to the doctor to see if it was cancer, but it started rupturing. And we put just a little bit of cannabis oil on it and put a tachoderm over it. And we left it for 3 days, and we were going to change it. And when we took it out, it was like baby skin under there. Just this little soft baby skin, and it's gone, you know? And that was in a couple of days. So it's just, yeah. I've got a friend in Louisiana, she has cyclic vomiting disease. She had a brain tumor, and they botched the brain surgery to get the tumor out. Not only did they not get the tumor out, they messed it up, and she literally vomits everything she eats every single day. And this has been like 18 years. They put her in hospice 18 years ago, and they told her she wasn't gonna make it. And she uses the cannabis oil, and she uses, it's called Better Ways Solutions. And it's some kind of nasal spray. It's the only thing that she can use, the nasal spray, long enough to keep the oil down, to keep everything calm enough for her to keep her fluids and all that stuff down. So she's literally kept her name's Shani, and she's literally kept herself alive that way. And they're mystified. They're just like, keep doing what you're doing, because they can't explain it. The doctors can't, you know.
Yeah.
She should be dead.
Oh,
So.
wow. And then, so that helped a lot. And then around what time was it that you started eating a vegan diet?
So 2012 was when he wrecked that truck, and that's when I snapped. And I immediately, when I started making my changes, I went vegetarian. I didn't know what I was doing then. I was just like, I don't really care for meat, so I'm going to start. And I started cooking for me, because that was the first time I'm like, I'm going to live for me a little bit, you know. So I just started adapting, and then it was around, I'd say 2013, that I saw Forks Over Knives, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to make the rest of these changes. So 2013 into 2014, vegan, and but I'm whole food. I like, people want to, you know, they down you and you get negative remarks when you tell people you're vegan. So I am vegan, and I am vegan for the animals, but I'm also plant-based, and I'm plant-based for my health. So I try to get people to understand that it's not just about veganism, because they're like, oh, vegan this and vegan that. Why do you want to make stuff look like meat? No. I'm like, you don't understand. It may look like meat, but it's not meat. You're not hurting an animal, and you can still have the taste. You can still have the benefits, but you don't have to kill an animal to do that. So, yeah. I tell people I don't judge people. I just wish people would be more aware of what they do. And I have opened a lot of people's eyes. I'm like, you walk into that store, you buy that package, you don't think about what goes into that package. You don't think about what that animal went through to be put into that package. You know, the energy that you're consuming from that. You don't think about all those hormones and all that yuck that they're putting in that animal to keep it just, oh, it's so awful. So I'll educate people as much as I can, you know, and try not to judge, but it's really hard sometimes, because I do know. And when I go into stores, I wear headphones, and I just put my headphones on, and I don't go by the aisles that have the meat and all that. So I just try to go through the produce and my little Asian section, and you know, but it's just hard watching people, you know, because they just blindly, and then watching them with kids, and they're just loading their carts up with processed garbage, you know, and I see all the sickness that's coming from all this. And like I said, my son, if I would have known, I know that his hormone, everything's been disrupted because of the things that he's consumed that I didn't know, you know, like just regular laundry detergent, the things that they put in it. Anyway, I know too much now. I just know too much.
Yeah, so how do you feel like your experience coming from the South, especially with all of the meat and sweet tea and things like that, that's, you know, very well as far as plant-based nutrition goes. That stuff causes a lot of diabetes and this and that. How has that experience been for you? Did you feel like that informed your decision to go vegan?
So my dad died at 53 right before Christmas, and when this happened with my ex wrecking the truck and all that, and I started snapping out of it, I just started looking at my entire family. I'm like, I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be this way. And I said my dad committed a slow suicide, because I literally watched him die. He laid on a couch. He had a pipe fall on his back, 2-ton pipe fall on his back when I was a little baby, and it literally crushed his spine. And they took a bone out of his leg and fused his back together with 2 metal screws. This was back in the 70s, so they didn't really know what they were doing. But it messed him up. But instead of staying active and doing physical therapy and he just gave up. And he he sold Herbalife back when Herbalife was a big thing, and he made a lot of money. And then he bought a video store, a restaurant, a car wash, and then he got into horses. And long story short, he lost all the money with horses when the bottom fell out of the market. So after that, he just he gave up, and he would lay on this couch like this with his ashtray and cigarettes right here, his Sun Drop, which is like stronger than Mountain Dew. It's a Southern drink. It's like nothing but sugar. And he would literally yell at one of us to come get him anything that he needed. Or my grandmother, who lived up the hill, would walk down and get him anything he needed. So I just watched him, and he smoked one cigarette right after the other. And then 2 weeks before he died, he tried to change. He tried to quit smoking. He literally quit eating because he knew food was killing him. But he didn't try to do it the healthy way. He just was like, I can't eat anymore. I've got to, you know. And then he died. And when he died, he was like the control of the family. Everybody just kind of lost it and went in different directions. And I don't know, he heavily influenced me. And then my grandparents died. My granddad always had a garden. He raised his own animals and all that, but he was constantly working on a farm. And they ended up making him sell his farm, and within 6 months he was dead. But he had pancreatic cancer. He was in his 80s, you know, but honestly, I know that's because he had the garden and because he stayed active. But he had diabetes, and then my ma is what they called her, but she had diabetes. My dad's sister had diabetes. They all had heart disease, and they're all dead. And then my baby sister, she lost one leg, and her other leg is not functioning at all now. She's been in hospice. They just now took her out of hospice, but she's 4 years younger than me, and she still won't change. So my mom, kidney failure, congestive heart failure, all these things, she won't change. And it's like they make food addictive, but it's like literally watching my family die of addiction, but it's food. So I knew I could, and I have a problem with food. Like I said, when I broke up with I love to cook. I'm a vegan like chef. I can cook anything. If I can taste it, I can cook it, you know, if I can get it in my mind. But I made all these comfort foods. It was nothing bad. It was all still whole food. It was all still vegan, but my body loves fat. It'll just latch onto it, you know? And so I was making all these comfort foods, and I was eating late, watching TV, and then I hibernated this winter because it was rainy, and I don't like being active in the rain. And I needed time to go inside and do some inner work anyway, so I did all that. But I'm like, now I'm mad at myself. I'm gonna get myself back up out of this. So I just got it on Facebook. I'm like, you guys are gonna be on this with me. I'm gonna show y'all what my new guys, I've got people that have followed me for years, and they've seen me come through so much, you know. But they're like, oh, we're so excited. And I'm not gonna tell you exactly what I'm doing. I just started intermittent fasting again. And I'm gonna show them everything that I do and all the different supplements that I'm gonna take. I'm gonna do some detox and all that, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I just went and had all my blood work done. My doctor's amazed. She's like, with your family history, this is amazing. You keep doing what you're doing. All my inflammatory, everything's perfect, you know? And, but I don't feel right because I put on probably about 40 pounds. I got down to like 122 was my lowest, and that was when I was sick too, though. So I'm not happy where I'm at right now, and I got to where I wasn't active, so I'm starting to hurt, you know, more than normal. So that's another reason I'm going back to the desert, because the weather's better for my pain levels and stuff. But I'm like, nope. So I've started going on my trips again, and I've got a little dog, and we go hiking everywhere and just pushing myself to get more active. But yeah, having the following kind of keeps me accountable too, because I know I got people kind of like, let's see if she does it.
Yeah, so tell me about the start of using Facebook and what that's called and how.
Okay.
Tell me that whole story.
So I went to school. I was like, I'm gonna build a website. My original plan when I started all this was to build a website because I was running a fibromyalgia group, and I ended up getting that group advertisers. And I'm like, if I could do that for them, I could do that for me. So I'm going to build me a website, and I'm going to get my own advertising, and that'll give me an income, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to start a blog and all this stuff. So I went to school. I was in their first web design class, though. So basically what I learned was WordPress.
Oh, I see.
I learned a little bit of programming, but mostly WordPress. But I did build a website for the sheriff's office there and all that. So I learned how to do that. And during that time, though, I remember I was coming out of all the darkness, and I was losing weight, and I was starting to feel better. And I was in the fibromyalgia groups, but it was all the negative, you know, I'm in so much pain, I'm blah, 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 and yeah, 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 and the doctor's this, and yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm just like, I don't feel that way anymore. And I want to be around people that feel better. So I got on Facebook and I started a page called Being Positive with Fibromyalgia. And I started going to other groups and sharing. Anyway, long story short, I built it to over 20-something thousand followers, just sharing and doing different things, and learned how to build a following from that. And then I spun off of that. I've got Easy to Love Plant-Based Recipes. It's a group. We've got 4,000 something followers on it. And then I've got other little groups, like I've got a local Oregon waterfall hiking group, and I've got a off-grid community group, and I'm just really into socializing and building the communities. While I was in the desert, I started one Mojave off-grid communities. Anyway, I've got it. I don't get on it as much because I'm not there anymore, but I've got moderators running it for me. But it's all the people that are in the Mojave Desert that are off-grid, and they communicate with each other, and so it's pretty cool. They help each other out, and yeah. So.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome. So it's not necessarily like personal blogs as much as it is like trying to create a community around a
Community
subject.
stuff, and I've got a big personal following. I've got 5,000 on my personal page, but
Oh, awesome.
yeah, they just I've got, like I said, people that have followed me for years they started out in groups and then they end up following me personally. And but I've also used Facebook, like when I travel, I got a lady when I first got here in Oregon. I was coming to meet one lady, and my friend was supposed to be introducing me. My friend didn't come. She was like, I'm going to fly out there. And I'm like, well, I'm going to drive. But I knew the minute I got in the car that she was not going to, I'm like, she's going to miss her flight. She's not coming. But I wanted to come to Oregon anyway. I just knew I was supposed to come. So I get here, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. And first thing, my friend Lori reaches out. Well, she's been following me for 4 years. She's like, Shell, if you're close to Estacada, come see me. I'll let you give you a place to stay. And I was 30 minutes from Estacada. So I went and stayed with her for 2 weeks. And I got this little part-time job at a farm stand thing. The guy, he owns a farm and he has stands all over like Portland.
Okay.
So I did that for him for the summer. And I ended up getting renting a room in Oregon City. But that guy, he was horrible. He tried to come across as an enlightened person. He said his name was Johan, and it turned out his name was not Johan. It was something normal, you know. And then the roommates ended up filling me in. Oh, he was not a nice person. So I was looking for a place. I'm like, I don't know where I want to go, but I knew I wanted to stay in Oregon. So I see on Marketplace, the place I'm at now, she's a school teacher. And I answered her. Anyway, we talked for like an hour and a half. I come to meet her, and my boss at the time, he's like, you can't move to Forest Grove. You're going to end up quitting. And I'm like, no, I won't. I can do it. And he's like, you're going to end up quitting. He was right. Because I got here, and it's a little over an hour to the ocean. You know, Tillamook Forest is, oh my gosh. And so, yeah, there's dispersed camping everywhere and hiking trails everywhere. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm in heaven. But I can't do the rain, so I can definitely tell the difference in my body. So I'm like, no, I'm not doing it again for the winter. So I'm going to go to Arizona for the winter and come here for the summer.
Oh,
hopefully.
great.
That's my plan tentatively now. But anyway, I end up meeting all these different people, and everybody's like, aren't you scared? Aren't you? But I'm like, no, I don't let fear. I go with that gut feeling, like, you know, I had with your ad. I'm like, I'm supposed to do this. I don't know why, but I was supposed to do this. So yeah, and then I end up just going on these crazy adventures and meeting people, but I do it like I do it fighting my body. I'm still doing it. I get out. There's days that I'm like, I can't even get out of my bed, out of the truck. You know, I'm like, I'm just gonna lay here. But I could either be hurting in there and seeing all this beautiful stuff, or I could be sitting in my chair hurting and not living. So that's where my son is finally pushing through and doing those things now too. He's starting to live, and he's got a job now, and he's doing things now. And I'm like, that's what you got to do, you know. And he tells me, God, Mom, I'm hurting so bad. He's got fibromyalgia too now. But I was like, you're going to hurt. You're going to hurt. So you can either sit there and hurt, or you can get up and live and hurt. You know, you can have memories, and you can have things that you accomplish, or you can sit there and die, you know, like your gramps did. Yeah. So that's the choice.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, wow, that's awesome. So
sorry, I threw a lot at you.
Oh yeah, no, you're all good. You're all good. So what's something that that you're worried about in the future?
I try not to stress and worry anymore because I've been literally through so much, and I literally walked away from everything. Like, I had to leave the stuff I had in Arizona because I came here. I was only going to come 4 weeks. I'd left some stuff, and my son was going to bring it, and he didn't get to bring it, and so I couldn't go back and get it, and so I had to leave it. And I've literally had to just leave everything. So I left everything in Florida. I left everything in Denver. And I want to get to the point that I don't have to leave everything. What I really want is I want to build all these different communities and be able to go to each community and just have the people that love living in that area managing the community, and the people that want to work there living there, and then I go and kind of oversee the community, so I still get to travel. But my biggest, I guess, worry, like right now, my vehicle, there's something going on with the brakes or whatever, and I'm not a mechanic, and just having the finances to keep everything going. But I try really hard just to not stress and worry, because I look back at all the things that I've been through and overcome, and the scariest times of my life, I made it through it. And looking back, I was actually protected, you know? So I'm not necessarily worried. It's more, I guess if I do have to worry, it's that my son doesn't quite understand everything that I'm doing and why I do what I do. And like, I'm getting ready to leave again, and he doesn't want to leave. He wants to stay here. And I'm like, build a life here. This is perfect for you. You got benefits here that you're not going to get anywhere else. He loves hoodie weather. He loves the rain. And I'm like, this suits you, and I can come see you in the summer. You don't have to be right with me. You know, he's very codependent. But my biggest worry is him, that is he going to make it? Is he going to be able to pull through? And he's developmentally delayed. He's like 30 years old, but he's more like on an 18, 19-year-old level. But he's a big giant guy, so everybody thinks he's grown. So I'm pushing him and making him grow up. But that's my biggest, I guess, worry is my son. Yeah. But as far as myself, I don't worry. My car, I've got it set up. I cook meals, and you know, I've got it completely. I can literally live out of my car if I need to, and I've had to before. I did it out in the desert. I was out in the Grand Canyon, and I stayed out there. It started getting really, really hot, and that's when I left. But I was out there like 6 months, and boondocked, and yeah.
Okay. And so, growing up in the South, you know, pretty religious area. Did you grow up religious?
Well, yes and no. So my dad was raised Baptist, and my mom was raised Pentecostal. And I went to church when I was younger, but they weren't like every Sunday type people because of my dad's health issues and stuff. And I am grateful I was raised in a Pentecostal church because it was very spiritual and it was a different side. And I remember when I was 16 years old, they decided they were going to go back to the Baptist church, and the Baptist preacher told me that I needed to get rebaptized because I was baptized in a Pentecostal church, not a Baptist church. And I literally stood up to him, stood up to my family, and went and joined the church. I'm like, no, you're not making me do that. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it between me and, I didn't even like calling God God then. I still want to, you know, say spirit, but my whole family, they were very programmed, you know. So yeah, my dad would probably die right now if he knew the way I believe now, but I'm still very spiritual, and I believe in, but I'm not programmed. I don't believe in religion at all. I believe it is a program that keeps people divided, and it's one of the hate things. So it was, I think that's part of why I can't go back to this. I can't imagine going back to the South now. They would look at me like I'm an alien, even though I still talk like them. I don't believe like that anymore, so.
Yeah, so if you were to describe sort of your spirituality now or any of its influences, how would you describe it?
Honestly, I'm still overcoming some of the programming, so I'll catch myself kind of slipping back a little bit, but I believe in higher self. I believe that, I don't know how much of this is us as higher self or actually this being up there. I don't believe in the judgmental thing that they've created that allows all these horrible, you know, all that. I don't believe any of that. So I do believe that something created us, and I don't believe that I don't believe it hates us. I don't believe it's trying to condemn us. I believe that we are sent here to learn. I believe we come here more than once. I believe if we don't learn the lessons, we come back and repeat the lessons. I'm still evolving into what I do believe, honestly. I'm very open-minded. I don't claim anything. To me, the greatest of these is love, and everything else is man-made bullshit, because none of us really know. So we all describe this thing, and then we fight with each other on what we describe. It makes no sense. So I'm just, I know that this is just a brief moment, and I'm actually excited about the next. I don't think I'm going to cycle through again. I think this is it for me. I'm actually excited to go see what's on the other side again. So I believe in the new earth. I do believe in a timeline split. I've jumped timelines several times. Getting ready to jump timelines again. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still, like I said, evolving. There's too much in my mind now to even make it all come out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has like psychedelic drugs or anything like that informed any of this, or?
I tried mushrooms and I got the psychedelic effects of it, but honestly, the one time that I really had a experience with it, it was more of a cleansing emotional release. I was with another lady and we were both just kind of like, I released so many bad feelings I had towards my ex and all that rage and all that. I don't know what happened, but we were literally at one point just screaming bad words. And I looked like the next day like I had been hit by a truck, but it was like this weight had just come off of me, But it wasn't a spiritual thing. It was more of an emotional release for me. So I haven't really had that. My experience with spirit, the closest was when I literally felt death at that one point before they figured it out and operated on me and found I got to the point I couldn't get up out of the bathtub. Like I was so weak, I couldn't eat anything. And I was literally just throwing up, trying to drink water, throwing up. And my ex-fiance had to call the ambulance people to come get me out of the bathtub. And he knew then it was bad because I'm very modest, I'll put it that way. And two guys had to come get me out of the bathtub. But I remember coming back from the hospital and I was still in that, it was almost like I was between worlds is what it felt like. But when those fires hit and all that happened and they told us we had to evacuate, I was really sick during all that because of all the stress. And so I don't know how close I was to death during that part of it, but I remember everybody was turning to me, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Because we had to be evacuated. And we had this guy step up. His daughter had been following me on Facebook. She had went vegan because of me. And she told her dad, she's like, you got to help her. So he called me and he said, Shell, I wanted to let you know I've got a place down in the valley. I'm remodeling it, but it's not done yet. But if you guys need a place to stay, you can come stay as long as you need to, because I know they're going to evacuate y'all. And we were either going to do that or we were going to go to this campground that was outside of the valley, because the fire was literally coming to the valley on three sides. And we were up on the pass. They'd already shut the pass down. The pass was the only other way out. There was one other way besides the pass. They'd already shut the second way out down once for the fires. And when you couldn't get out of the valley. And it's literally like a bowl, round valley, So I'm like, oh my God, what do we do? And why is everybody asking me? They didn't look to Larry. They looked to me. Even he looked to me. So I remember I just went to praying, meditating, whatever you want to call it, and was like, what do I do? What do I do, Spirit? What do I do? And it literally came through like a voice, stand still. And I'm like, stand still? How the heck am I going to stand still? But I knew the only place we could actually be still was in that house. And on the way to that house, we were pulling a camper down with one of the vehicles, and it quit pulling the camper. We unhooked the camper and it run fine, but it wouldn't pull that camper no more. So we got another vehicle to finally get the camper over to where we were at. But if we would have went to that campground, we would have broke down. And the very next day, everything burned. The campground, all of it, where we were headed, burned. So, yeah. And we got to stay in that house for, we were there 2 months, a little over 2 months. So that's my relationship with Spirit, is this inner guide. And that's where I'm like, I know it's my higher self guiding me as well. So that's the part where I don't know if it's an actual creator up there guiding me or if it's just my higher self guiding me. I don't know that part. I just know when I need it, it comes through. And when I listen to it, it's okay,
Yeah.
It's like coming here. It made no sense for me. I had a place I was staying with my son in Kingman, Arizona, and when she said she was coming to Oregon, I'm like, yes. And she's like, you don't even know what I'm saying. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going. I know you're going to Oregon. I'm going to Oregon. I've been wanting to go to Oregon, and it's time. And then when she said, I'm flying, I'm like, no, you're not. But I didn't say it to her at the time. I knew she wasn't coming, but I also knew I was supposed to come. And then I met Lori, and Lori had literally been praying to meet me because she had followed me and knew my story. And she was in a narcissistic relationship with her man, and through me, she's gotten a backbone with him, and their relationship's changing, and it's just amazing the ripple effects of all this, you know. But I listen to that voice, and when I do, and that's why I know I'm supposed to be going on this trip. And for some reason, I'm like, why in the heck am I going back to California? I don't want to go to, but I'm supposed to go back to California. And I did the coast of Florida. I went up 41A, the coast of Florida, because I'd never done it, and ended up on this crazy trip. I met so many people, and then I ended up coming back to Arizona and meeting more people, and then I went back to California, and then back to Arizona, and I've been to New Jersey, to Atlantic City. I went and got a lady, and I've been everywhere, Kansas City, and I just listen to the voice. Sometimes it's crazy, some of the things that happen. I'm like, oh my God, I don't understand, but coming through it, then I see the lessons, and I see how it's made me stronger. So, yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. No, because some people feel the need to define those things,
Yeah.
and others don't. And
There's no definition really, other than what we try to label, but it's just a label. It's not reality. So we won't know till we're there.
yeah,
You know, we have our experiences, and we can describe that, but I don't judge anybody, and I don't hate anybody. I love everybody, and I believe that we all bleed the same. We're all in this for a reason, and the end result is we all end up leaving this. No matter where we go after, we still end up doing that. So I don't understand why we allow ourselves to be divided like we are. I don't participate in politics at all. I saw the fallacy of that years ago. They do what they want to do. They've already done it by the time we know about it. Two sides of the same coin. They shake hands behind our back and put on this big dog and pony show for us to keep us divided and distracted. And I saw all that, and I'm just like, it really kills me though for people that claim to be enlightened and awake, and then they start arguing over Biden and Trump, and I'm like, are you serious? So yeah, I just anything that divides us is wrong. That's the way I feel, and I don't hate anybody. Like, I've literally got my mom, South, them gays. And I'm like, Mom. So I finally enlightened her. I'm like, look, it's not your place to judge. How do you know what they feel or who they are? It's even in nature, Mom. She's like, I'm like, you know, you say that you're a Christian. You say that, because she's still diehard. She's a Trumpster too, bless her heart. But I'm like, you say that you're a Christian and God is love and all that, but you're going to hate somebody and you're going to judge somebody and you're not going to have something to do with somebody just because of that. And so anyway, she's finally come around, you know, even my mom. But I that's the hardest part for me being in the world right now, is observing all the hate, and that people are so just blind. They consume this stuff and they don't think about it. And anyway, sorry, getting on the subject.
Well, what's helped you be positive, and also kind of what's helped you maintain positive relationships with people in your life who you have super different perspectives than? Because a lot of times, you know, like you said, your mother kind of disowned you for a period of time. And what about you, or what have you worked on to kind of heal those wounds?
Honestly, with my mom, I just had to accept that she is who she is, and she's never going to accept me fully for who I am. And I just accept myself for who I am. And I love her from a distance. And I honestly feel better now that I don't have a daily relationship with her, because I don't need the validation from her anymore. I used to, but I finally just realized she can't give me that. She doesn't have it in her to give, you know, and she can only see life through her perceptions. So honestly, it was just accepting her and loving her no matter what, but I have to love her from a distance. And it hurt because she's my mom. But I guess the biggest thing is not needing external validation from anybody. And that was hard. This last 3 to 4 years, honestly longer, 5 years, because even with my ex-fiance, he was He's a widower. He's 13 years older than me. And he was going through his own trauma and pain. We had the avoidant attachment relationship. I don't know if you know about that. I was the attachment, he was the avoidant. But he would push me away, push me away, push me away. So I was having to go internal and finding my own happiness because I was so miserable with him, sitting right next to him, being so lonely. I started gardening. I started getting into more spiritual stuff. That's when I started wearing the headphones and going, like I'm always listening to something to either expand my, like at night I listen to subliminal meditations, that literally change your mind. And during the daytime, I'm always listening to stuff spiritually or something to make my mind expand. So anyway, I use those headphones to tune out things that I don't want to deal with now. And like when I go to the store, or even sometimes just being out, and I can't deal with people's energies now. They're just so, I feel it. So anyway, I use that as an escape. But right now I'm working more on healing my relationship with my son and getting him to work on healing himself. He went through a lot of trauma with my ex-husband. My ex-husband abused him while I was working. And I didn't find out about it till he was 18, and he finally told me. But he has a lot of inner child wounds that he's still just clinging to. And I'm like, son, you've got to go in and heal that inner child. And I had to do that. I had the fortune of working with an energy healer, though. And she ended up putting me in a hypnotic state and took me back to a thing that happened in my childhood that I'd repressed. I'd literally never told anybody about it. And put me in this crystal sphere with my dad and my sister and my mom in that experience. And then in that experience, I had a flashback of him when he was a kid hiding behind a couch. And my granddad used to get drunk and shoot at him with a gun. And he was hiding behind the couch, and his mom and sister were outside hiding. And I felt all of his feelings. I felt his rage. I felt his fear. I felt his hate for his dad, but he loved his dad at the same time. But he was 12 years old, and he had no control. He couldn't save his sister. He couldn't save himself. He had all that rage, all that hate, and I felt all of that. And it came through to me that when he was out of control with us, he was actually that child that was out of control. And I'm like, I can't tell you what that did for me. Like, it just healed. And I'm like, it didn't excuse anything that he did to me, but it made me understand it. And then I realized it wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. And it wasn't even his fault. He was a kid, So that allowed me to release all that. And so I'm working with my son, trying to get him to understand that his dad had the same child wounds. His dad was abused growing up. And then he ended up with the alcohol. So when he would get drunk, he ended up taking all that out on my son. And doesn't make it right at all, but for him to heal that, he's got to somehow figure out a way to be able to let it go. So anyway, I'm more concerned about my relationship with him than any other relationship, because everybody else is grown and everybody else is living their own lives, And he's grown now too, but he doesn't know how to live. And he told me, he just left me a message that he's like, Mom, I'm sorry that I dumped so much on you. He's like, but I don't know how to handle things yet. And you and Mima are the only ones I have to get advice from. And I'm sorry I put so much, it made me feel so bad and good at the same time. He's like, I love you, Mom. And so just finding that balance with him where I'm not enabling him. That's him calling. He's probably like, oh gosh, Mom's not back yet. But finding the balance with him to where I'm not enabling him, but I'm helping him help himself. And that's been hard, learning the tough love. But the school teacher's helping. She's got a son a little bit younger than him, and she just got him out of the house. Now my son's living in her basement. But anyway, we relate to each other very well. And she's like, "You're doing good. You've got to do the tough love, but you're doing fine." I'm like, "I know, but gosh, it's hard. I want to give him everything, but I can't." So anyway.
Well, one last question. If you had one message for the world, what would it be?
Love. But the love, it has to start within. You have to go in and heal yourself. You have to love yourself. That's another thing that I've learned traveling and doing everything, is learning to be at peace with just myself. To not need external validation, to not need somebody else to love me, because I love me. And to make a safe space for yourself, inside. And then it'll radiate outwards. And quit getting caught up in all the stuff that doesn't matter, because this is just a blink. We're going to blink and we're going to be gone. And people waste so much time on stuff that doesn't matter, you know, and then focus on the things that really do matter. And what does matter is your family and the environment, Mother Earth, loving the earth, animals, gardening. You know, we got to stop doing what we're doing. We got to change. And if we all do that, if we all do it as a collective, if we stop letting these dictators dictate this stuff to us and we stop participating in it, then things will change. So be the change, I guess.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we can